And today, this is another episode that just makes me realize how much I love and appreciate this Blaxploitation genre. Because our movie for today is a movie titled A Place Called Today. Now, this is a movie that most people have probably never even heard of. Those who have heard of it may not consider it a Blaxploitation movie, but it is definitely worth knowing about. It came out in 1972, and it's kind of a black themed political mystery thriller. That's saying a lot, I know. You can't go into this one expecting like Black Caesar or Shaft or something like that. I mean, this is almost a political debate disguised as a thriller. And the overview of it is basically what you have is a black mayoral candidate is suspected to be the culprit behind a series of bombings. Now, this particular one was written and directed by Don Shane. And if I just give you a little nuggets around Don Shane, he wrote and produced and directed, or a combination of the three, the Ginger trilogy, which is three movies starring Sherry Cafaro, who was actually in this movie. It was Ginger. I forget what the second one was called, but I know the third one was called Girls Are for Loving. Okay. But as far as who you have in this movie, you got the lead actor is this guy right here named J. Herbert Kerr. He plays a politician named Randy Johnson, or an attorney who's running for mayor named Randy Johnson. And he did a really good job in this movie. I'm surprised that he actually only had two other movies after this one. I'm not sure what happened to him. Who you also have in this movie is Lana Wood. If you all know who that is, that's Natalie Wood's sister. And Lana Wood, she plays the character named Carolyn Schneider, excuse me. And she was also in a James Bond movie, Diamonds Are Forever. She played Plenty O'Toole in James Forever. And like I said, she's Natalie Wood's little sister. The you got what's this guy's name? Richard Schmedley. He plays a character named Carlton, and he was actually married to Natalie Wood for a short time. I don't know if they were married during the filming of this movie or after, but they were married for about 4 years. And then you have Sherry Cafaro, who, like I said, was in the Ginger trilogy, and turns out she is, or was, because he's passed away, Don Shane's wife. So don't know if that's how she got the role or not, but and she's kind of known for going topless and showing off the tatas in a lot of her movies, which she does in this one as well. Okay, and then surprisingly, the only person who really had Blaxploitation credits is this guy here, Timothy Brown. He plays Steve Smith, with this kind of Randy Johnson's campaign manager, and you may recognize Tim Brown from, he was in Black Gun with Jim Brown, which we covered a few episodes ago. He was the lead in a movie called Dynamite Brothers. And I haven't seen Dynamite Brothers yet. That's on my list to watch, as well as he was in Zebra Force. That's on my list to watch. And then he was also the lead in a movie called Black Heat. I saw that one, not all that, but it's probably one that I'll cover somewhere down the road. Okay. And then that pretty much was the crux or the core of the candidates. Now, with regards to this particular movie, like I said, this guy, Randy Johnson, J. Herbert Kerr as Randy Johnson, he's the the main character in this movie. You know, basically this movie, a series of bombings is taking place throughout the city, and he enters the race for running for mayor on a platform of equality for all. And then doesn't seem like he can get a fair shake, even though he's the best candidate. His campaign manager, Steve Smith, played by Tim Brown, tells him, "Hey, man, you're the best candidate." But you know, this was 1972, so he doesn't feel he can really win the election fairly. So he works with these radicals, the guys who are setting off the bombs, to the point of, kind of inciting or keeping the violence going so he can run on this platform of equality for all and eliminating violence. Is one of his slogans or taglines was victory over violence. And it got to a point so that he actually crossed the line to the point of doing a kidnapping. I'll talk about a little bit later. So in watching this movie, you root for him as the candidate to become mayor, but you also wonder like, man, is this guy an opportunist? Does he cross the line when he, asks these radicals to go and to keep continuing this cycle of violence and pulling off this kidnapping. So that as you watch this, you have a number of questions and things that you'll ask yourself about. Is this a good guy or a bad guy type of deal? um Other folks, you have like I said, you got Lana Wood and Ron Tartan, or Ron and Carolyn, excuse me, Lana Wood and Richard Smedley playing Carolyn and Ron. And they kind of have a weird situation going on because they're a couple, but they recognize that they have fundamental differences. Like Ron, he's a TV news producer and director. Carolyn, she's like this political activist, very, very dedicated to the cause, almost to the point of here's a scene where she talks about they were having an argument, and he was talking about how dedicated she is to the cause, and then just kind of check out, this is one of the things she says.
I'll steal for it, fuck for it, kill for it, and die for it.
And she pretty much lives up to that throughout the movie. Okay. Now, throughout their relationship and them having these fundamental differences, Ron is also in a relationship with Sherry Carfaro, or she plays this character called Cindy Cartwright, who is she's the daughter of one of the cronies of the current mayor. Current mayor's name is what's the current mayor? It's Mayor Ben Atkinson. And he has this crony, this kind of like rich guy who kind of pulls, almost like his puppet master pulling the strings, named Alexander Cartwright. And Sherry Carfaro is Cartwright's daughter. And she's just basically this privileged, uppity chick who's having this relationship with Ron, almost to the point of she likes her sexual relationship with Ron more than she likes daddy's money, because he tries to put an end to their relationship and she's not having it. She even makes the statement that, Ron Scott keeps her happier than than his money does, which is funny. So pretty much of this movie follows Randy trying to win the election, while the establishment, the media, the radicals, all of this is competing to shape the city's future. Okay. And so with built in within that, as like I said, it's political diatribe and all that good stuff. It's the action that comes in this movie are the bombings and things of that nature, but the political story or the political backstory behind it is very intriguing, man, and it's very interesting. That's why I say it is definitely a watch that you want to say. Now, I will admit it is kind of dialogue heavy. It's a lot of dialogue in it. Some of the acting is pretty poor, but again, the subject matter is very relevant, because every so often, somebody in this movie will say something that'll have you thinking, man, this could have been written for today's times based on what's going on. Like, there is a scene where there's this little boy, so he's like late at night, kind of out courting, and Randy just happened to be walking. He was kind of like getting his thoughts together, walking at night, and he runs into this little boy. The little boy's being chased by a cop, and Randy runs into him, and he kind of inquires as to, hey, little man, why you out this late at night? And the boy gives him a story about, my mama works at night. She says that, she can only watches us during the daytime because she has to work at night. So, when she's out at night, I'm out here hanging out. And, Randy kind of talks to the little kid heart to heart, just saying, hey, man, your mom's doing the best she can. And, what you want to do is just strive to be a good boy. It's just like a heart to heart conversation, man, a real sentimental scene. But after the little boy runs off, Randy turns to the cop that was chasing him and says, hey, man, he's a really good kid. I can tell he's a really good kid. And the cop says something to the extent of, well, most of the kids out here are, but this environment turns them bad. And it's just like, even though that was back from 1972, that's something that is, could still be relevant today. There's a scene I want to show you about with regards to with Randy running for mayor. There's some this scene of some construction workers having a conversation about whether he's a good candidate or not. And again, the acting is kind of poor, but once you peep the dialogue, you can kind of see how it might even still be relevant today. So let's take a look at that one here.
We make the same buck, dollar for dollar. Shit, how many times we go across the street to Joe's for a beer after quitting time?
That's you and me. And that ain't where it's at. Johnson's a good man, and he ain't worrying about one or two.
What do you want? Everything on a silver platter? Let him go out and work for it.
That's easy for you to say. When you wanted a job, you walked into the hall and the union hired you when they needed a man. Me, when I wanted one, my ass stood in line until they needed a black man.
You're goddamn right.
So, again, acting a little, yeah, but that scene kind of resonated with me with regards to the black guy telling the white guy, hey, man, when you wanted a job, all you had to do was show up. I had to wait until they needed to meet a quota, basically. And, when we think about, again, this came out in 1972. So, people were at this time would have been thinking about the civil rights movement, black political power, urban unrest, political violence, and distrust of institutions. A lot of that is still relevant today. And that particular scene with those guys made me think of, I'm here in Detroit where we have auto industry. And I know tons of guys, man, who talk about back in the day when they tried to get hired in the auto plants and they were saying that the white dudes would, just show up and they show up and apply and they'd be like, hey, all right, go out to the line. Like that day, that moment, they'd send them out. But for the brothers, they kind of had to jump through hoops or wait until, they had to fill some quotas almost. So it's just that kind of stuck with me where I was like, wow. And that's just kind of little things about this movie where, again, the acting isn't great. It's not a lot of high profile names in here, but the story in and of itself is a pretty good story and definitely a recommended watch. So when we think about, this particular movie, I like to ask people, the question I pose to you is a place called today kind of a forgotten Blaxploitation film, or is it really just a political drama that happened to come out during the Blaxploitation boom? Your thoughts, think about it. And then I'll leave you with this. Like I said, J. Herbert Kerr, not sure why he didn't do other movies. Like I said, when I did the research, it showed that he did 2 other movies, but he, as Randy Johnson, as a person running for office, he delivers some very fiery and powerful speeches. So this is what I'm gonna share with you real quick, a short one, just so you can get an example of some of his acting. All right, so let's peep this one out.
Now, the young men of our city have grown tired of some men living in mansions while others live in shacks. Tired of some men hoarding fortunes while others slave for dollars. Tired of some men lying by swimming pools while others lie in rice paddies, and tired of questions with no answers. They have grown frustrated at the prospect of lies with no direction or meaning, and they have become embittered by the bullets that struck the Kennedy brothers and Brother Martin Luther dead. They do not ask now. Instead, they have been driven to bombings and killings and other acts of violence, for they can see no other reasonable alternatives. The bridges have all been crossed, and at each crossing they have been burned. And I tell you, we stand this night as a people, as cities, as states, yes, even as a nation, on the brink of a revolution, which, if it comes, will destroy us for more decades than we have been in existence.
Wow. And he delivers several fiery speeches like that throughout the movie. And again, man, there was times where I was like, is this dude a real politician or is he an actor? And for me, I think he has the chops that he could have went on and do some other stuff. Not sure why, but just this particular entry, check it out, man. I'll give J. Herbert Kerr his flowers as Randy Johnson, and I'll actually give this movie its flowers. Again, you may say, it's not Blaxploitation, it's political theater, but whatever. Check it out. I think it's a pretty decent movie. Okay. All right.